So, thank you all for joining another episode of Your Double podcast. I am happy to be here with private investigator Monique Lessan, who's here to share a lot of knowledge and experience in the world of parental abduction, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and all the amazing work she's done to help reunite families. Thank you for joining us today, Monique.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
We would just love to get to know you a bit more. Can you tell us a bit about your background and really who you are?
Okay, I'm actually a American Persian private investigator, uh, licensed from California, and that's where my headquarters are. I travel a lot. I have a master's in forensic science, so I do a lot of forensic cases as well. And my specialty used to be criminal investigation for the first 16 years because I have been licensed for 30 years. And for the last, I would say, 20 years of it or 15 years of it, I have done mostly child abduction cases, recovery of missing children. I've spoken at a lot of different conferences and seminars about this subject, which is really close to my heart. I do not have children, but saving children and reuniting families are my number one priority in life. I'm extremely passionate about this subject.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing for children. I know that you've also written, I think, a couple books about abduction, child abduction, I believe.
Yes. About 10 years ago, I started writing about my cases, is novels uh, inspired by true stories of not just mine, but a few others. And I combine them. It's a very fast-paced type of books. And it goes from New York on September 11th, the moment that the airplanes crashed into our World Trade Center in New York. And it starts there and it goes into Malaysia and Singapore, and that's based on a true story. And the recovery of a child was the way it started, and it's a trilogy. So the second book, which I just finished, and it will be published, I think, in the next few days, which today I have to wrap it up. And it's a trilogy, um, which continues into what happens to the first case or the first book, and it goes into other children. And the second book actually involves Jeffrey Epstein, a lot of it. And and it will go, and immediately, I think maybe next week, I will start the third one. This is very important to me. I like people to read it in many different languages because bringing awareness is very, very important on this subject. I also had my own podcast for 7 years, from 2012 until 19, about many of the subjects that we're going to be talking about today.
Amazing. So I'll be sure to put the link to the book and watch out for the next book as it becomes published. I'm sure people will be excited to
Absolutely.
see that. So I think where I'd love to start is I think our audience would love to hear about some of your cases that you've worked on, whether those are cases of parental abduction, human trafficking, sex trafficking. Like, what are some of the most complex cases that you've dealt with as a private investigator?
Let me kind of break it down like this. Human trafficking or missing children from North America, about 300,000 go missing every year, which is shocking because they don't talk about it. It's not anywhere announced. You don't see it on television or milk cartons. Sometimes you see them. Sometimes they put the names of these children or pictures on Walmart walls. You know, the thing is, a lot of these children do come back if it's within 72 hours. If they don't come back, and children under 5 years old, usually either kidnapped by another family that can't have children, they have a problem with having families, and they target a couple. They possibly um, go to the same stores or know their schedules. And once they know what is going on with their life every day, they will set themselves up to kidnap that child because they want to have a child. But if it's a pedophile, that's usually, again, between 2-year-old and 5-year-olds are also targets of pedophiles, unfortunately. Then we go to the next step. From 5, 6 until maybe 12 or 13, those are targets of trafficking, usually sex trafficking, and they're not always just in America. Also, there are countries that are source countries and there are receiving countries. The source countries usually are poor countries such as India, or countries that are, for example, Thailand is not a poor country, but it is considered a source country. Moldova, Ukraine, Russia, United States, and Middle East, believe it or not, like Saudi Arabia, are receiving countries. They receive these children. A lot of them are, for example, when we're talking about Saudi Arabia, for example, or Afghanistan, those countries, they have children, they marry kids, basically. The age difference could be 20 years. The young age of a child could be 9 years old, which is unbelievable. I've seen it done. I know people. In fact, just recently, a girl, I think was 16 or 17, got kidnapped from Iran, Shiraz, to Afghanistan, forced to be married. They can't find her. And everyone is calling me to see if I can find this girl. But many private investigators have been contacted on this and they had refused it. For me to go to a country like Afghanistan, I would have to have a team of mercenaries. It's not a case that a private investigator really accepts. It's more than that. So I am looking at that. The other thing is sex trafficking of children of any age. Usually they are lured, and internet has not helped at all. They get lured by going on different sites. These children, they don't know who they're talking to. Usually they're much much older than they're saying. For example, they think they're talking to a 16-year-old, like their own age, from the same school, but they're not. And they lure them to meet them somewhere. And then all of a sudden they find out that that person is 20 years old or 25 years old. And they get taken. They pass many times. They are trying to be models or exchange students, and they go to another country. Immediately the passports are taken away. The other thing is modeling. The modeling is a very big business. And kids fall into that because they want to be famous. Usually modeling agencies and adoption agencies are major aspect of human trafficking. They're part of the whole thing. Once a child is taken, they break them. How do they break them? They can break them sexually, physically, they hit them, they rape these children, and they make them work. They make them work to pay back a debt that never existed in the first place. And one of these kids end up to be the broker, told to go to school. She's told to go, I mean, boys too, by the way, not just girls. They go to different schools or universities and they lure them in. In case of Jeffrey Epstein, for example, Virginia, Jeffrey was one of those people. And many of them, they say, I know someone, if you want to be a dancer, why don't you come over? And I heard many of these kids, they just sit in the living room and allow the other kids get raped, and they get paid. They don't care. Their job is done. So that goes, it's a sad story of trafficking. Many of them don't come back. Let me just tell you another thing about the law enforcement. The law enforcement goes on for a very long time. They can set up these businesses, these cells, and they watch the trafficking going on in a city. For example, in Northern California, where I was living. And all of a sudden, in one day, they allow all the law enforcement to go arrest the Johns and I say the Johns, the traffickers, and rescue the children. But it has to be at the same time, everywhere in the same day. That I think was many of them are happening right now, but the one that I was involved with was cross country. I was part of the human trafficking task force in Northern California. There's a lot of bureaucracy going on, unfortunately, when it comes to these type of things. Do you have a question? I can stop for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of scary things that you just mentioned for any parent to hear, and a lot of situations you're talking about are things that happen in just a kind of a normal life. We go to the grocery store with our children, not knowing that maybe somebody is watching us, memorizing our movement and our schedule. Maybe our children are going off to university, or a child says they want to become a model, or we decide that we want to adopt a child. These seem to be very common things that a lot of us experience in our everyday life. And then you
Right.
talk about a little bit of the bureaucracy when it comes to reuniting these families. And then the
Okay.
fact that the longer these children are taken, the harder it is to reunite them. So I
Okay.
guess my question for you is, what can we do as parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, you name it, adults? What can we do? What should we be watching out for so that we don't actually get in this type of situation? We protect our children and our loved ones from actually even experiencing this, because I imagine that is probably the best solution, right?
Okay. I'm going to break this down. First of all, watch your children, not just on internet. Make sure that you have parental, um, what do you call it? I mean, you're
Parental
a parent.
controls. Yeah.
Yeah, parental control. Definitely, that's the number one. Too many children have cell phones. We can't stop that now. Instead of giving them gifts for Christmas, people get the next level cell phone for the children, which is to me ridiculous. I would not have done that. But I have a couple of examples when I was living in Northern California. I was running a, a very long hike and I saw two little girls, ages, I would say 6 years old, 6 and 7. I stopped. I said, whoa, I don't see your parents. Where are your parents? Oh, they're over there. I run back toward where she said the parents were walking. Like a lot of women are walking together, like, sisterhood.
Mm.
And two women 1 mile away, all the way away from the children, were walking, talking to each other. If I was a predator, I would have taken those children. To me, that's ridiculous. It's too much of a distance. You need to be near your kids. The other thing that I was shocked to see, I was in Safeway, and I saw a bunch of ballerina girls with a couple of teachers. And the girl, 10 years old, 9 years old, 11 years old, perfect victims. Because what you don't know is that you're being watched. This is called victimology. So someone in the back is watching your children for a perfect opportunity. What I noticed, and I was with my partner, all of a sudden these girls are stretching their legs in the store all the way. I was shocked that the teachers were not saying anything. So I went up and I said, excuse me, first of all, put your legs down because this is a store. It's not a dance studio. Second of all, I went up to the teachers. I said, this is not right. You need to watch this because when you least expect it, someone is targeting these kids. It's shocking that this is such a simple thing, but people don't realize that predators are all around us. They're everywhere. They're watching you when you're not watching them. Also, at night, bring your curtains down. Don't think that because somebody outside can't see you inside your house.
Mm.
They are watching your movements.
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
And what
Now,
about
yeah,
for things like, um, wanting to adopt a child and wanting to do your best to ensure that child is not part of a larger kind of human trafficking ring, wanting to go work in another country, maybe as a domestic worker, a model, but also wanting to ensure that you are going to actually do that work and you're not at risk of basically
Okay.
becoming trafficked. What are some steps that people can take?
So you just mentioned three different things.
Mhm.
Remind me because I'm going to kind of keep track of them. Let me give you an example of a case that I had in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where things were pretty much answering your first question about adoptions. Um, the case came to me from an aunt of a family in Sao Paulo. The family was very poor. They had Zhao. Zhao was perfect child, 2 years old, green eyes, light green eyes, darker skin, and was playing in the front yard. The parents were inside watching TV. The family was together. So they asked grandpa to go in front. By the way, there was a river running by and there was a gate. There was a gated community. I mean, it was not a gated community. It was a gate around the front yard. There was a family living across the street that had criminal records. Anyways, when this case came to me, Zhao, within the first 10 minutes of grandpa watching the child and going back and forth inside, disappeared. Zhao was gone. And nobody knew how because Zhao was too small to jump over a gate or fall into the river, which was on that side. So when I got involved, I was shocked. How do I even begin to do this case? Grandpa would not allow the family to hire any other private investigator except his own friend in the law enforcement. Family hired me, and I brought in a friend who spoke Portuguese. Lo and behold, here's the bottom line. An adoption company in Venezuela, grandpa sold his own grandson to the adoption company in Venezuela, and a couple came from Israel and bought the child. Unbelievable. Now, I have to say, we did not recover the child. The child was gone. We just found out that the grandpa went to prison, and we found out the adoption company in Venezuela, and these are corrupted. This is corruption to the maximum. In countries like Brazil, Venezuela, very difficult to work with the law enforcement because they're part of the problem. They get paid. They don't make much money. So that's one of the cases that was sadly we were not able to recover the child. And but in a way, maybe the child is in a better place. Who knows? Because the family, the couple, like I was telling you, they love these 2 year olds. They're not old enough. They can work with them. They can groom them to be part of the family. You know, um, and they were very rich. So I don't know.
I just want to just stop you there for a minute. Actually, just talk a bit about Find My Parent and the app we have. So we have a mobile app that people can use, and reason I want to talk about it because it actually would work in a case like this. Sadly, probably not in the early days because the child is only 2 years old. But imagine this child grows up and they become 15, 16, 17, 18, and they have some gut feeling, instinctual feeling that, I'm not from this family. Maybe they figure out they're adopted and they're trying to figure out where their biological family is. I would imagine this type of case, they're not going to find the paperwork because it was clearly like an illegal adoption, right? That things were probably not tracked
Right.
correctly, let's say. So what would happen and how this would work with our technology is that child, now 15, 16, 17, could put in any information they knew about themselves and their family, whether that's a family back home, which may be zero about that family, and their adopted family, but they would know about themselves, maybe the day that they were born, maybe some memories they had back at home, their name, and probably the most powerful thing would be pictures they have. They would have pictures at least when they were 2 years old. The family back home, in Brazil, whether this is mom and dad or cousin, aunt, maybe a sibling that was born after this child and they want to reconnect, could put in similar information about that family back in Brazil. And most likely they would probably have an image of this child. Uh, the child could put it in any language. Let's say they're Hebrew speaker now, so they only put it in Hebrew or English, and the family back in Brazil only knows Portuguese. And basically, what our technology will do is it will constantly search for matches, regardless of the language. So if they put a name in Hebrew and in Portuguese, it would match it even though it's in two different languages. But in a case like this, the most powerful tool would be the image search. And our technology uses facial recognition. Could be the image of the child at 2 years old, maybe has a picture of his parents, that his adopted parents have hid away because maybe the adopted parents, they assume this was like a child that actually needed help and needed to be adopted. They don't understand the corruption that happened in the case. So that's just to show you a little bit about Find My Parents technology. And though in a case like this, it may not work on day one, day two, but even after time, it could work in connecting them. And that child, there's
Mhm.
information would stay in our app. Nobody can search for it. So even if they enter the information and match isn't made right away, it can be made after a year, after 2 years, the information stays there. So it makes the search a bit more efficient rather than manual. So I just wanted to highlight that because a lot of people think that our
That is great.
technology is for specific cases, but for adoption cases, it can be very powerful.
Right. And I would really like to be part of that and know more about it after the show. Maybe we can talk
Mm.
because I think that it would have helped a lot of cases. Um, Especially the case that I'm going to about to tell you. Actually, the congressman from Texas back, when was it? 2018 or 7? No, actually 2016 or something. Hired me. The secretary for this congressman actually was a. She put the money up to find this child for 21 years. She
Mm.
was missing from Texas into Mexico, and she disappeared in Chihuahua on Monterey, and she went to school. The father kidnapped the child. The grandma was part of it, and because the child was only less than a year old, and the mother did everything with private investigators, they could not find this child, and she ran out of money, and that is why people really, I mean, if you work with law enforcement, forget about it, especially if he goes into Mexico. He changed her name, he changed her citizenship, he changed everything and put her to school. And the mother never stopped. And when I got hired on this, I tried to hire Mexican investigators, and there was so much corruption. And I actually I find it, I mean, let me tell you, it took 6 months the first time. We found a child in this building, and we had to do progression of the picture to see what the child will look like right now at age 21, you know? Um, and also the children and the family, the school, um, not teachers and schoolmates that knew about the situation really helped out. Some people came in, kind of gave us some clues. Finally, I found the child in this building, and there was a shooting. Nobody wanted to touch it. In fact, the private investigator from Mexico said, forget about it. I'm not touching this, and left. And then, of course, the child again disappeared for another 6 months. BuzzFeed actually came along with me, and they were covering the story with me, BuzzFeed. And then I went to Los Angeles. I found out where she is. I found out where actually, um, I'm trying to remember, it was the aunt and uncle took the child from the father because they were trying to help her get her life back. And she was a musician. We found her in Los Angeles. It was a long case. It was a year old, but we found her far, far away from where she was kidnapped from. So, cases like this can go on. And just like you said, the longer it goes, the longer it takes, the child gets used to her friends, her environment, her school. She doesn't really want to go backwards. But in this situation, She was a baby, so she didn't know anything better.
Yeah.
That works. I had another case, but go ahead. I'm thinking about another case that was very similar to this. Oh, there was a case, I don't know if you heard of Not Without My Daughter. You might have been too young.
No, I've heard
Do
of
you
it.
know
Of
that?
course I have. Yeah.
Yeah, in LA. The father Iranian, the mother Iranian. Actually, the mother is American. He took the child to Iran and could not come out. It was Sally Field, the mother, and many years went by. The parents would not allow the parents of his parents actually would not allow their son to let the grandchild go back to America. So the private investigator that was involved in this used to work for the CIA.
Mm.
The reason I even bring this up, this was not my case, it was a long time ago. But I had a case in Russia and I had to go to New Orleans. And guess who was there? The private investigator, exactly who was involved with this case. And he was telling me about a case in Saudi Arabia where he had to actually do undercover work. And the children, it took so long, it took 2 or 3 years. And he kept working, he didn't leave. He was very adamant about bringing these children back. But the children now were so used to their life, they did not want to go back. When they were in the car, they ran out of the car and they went back to the father who kidnapped the children. So that can happen a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. In fact, I was just doing a podcast interview yesterday with Dr. Amy Baker, who's an expert in parental alienation. So, which is, it's about children getting used to their environment, but also probably being told lies and being brainwashed to
that's
think
right.
about the other parent. And it was something she said was so interesting, and I can't even stop thinking about it, is she talked about, I asked her, for children that have experienced this, what kind of help should they get? If a child, maybe they're a young adult and they realize I was alienated from my parent and they need support. And she said, go see a therapist that specializes in cults because it's so similar, the type of symptoms that you deal with. So there's a level of we're very used to our environment, the culture, if it's a foreign country, the language that we live in, but also this they've been alienated and brainwashed to not like the parent that was left behind for so long. They're fearful of going back to that parent. And
That's right.
sadly, it's the child that always loses. I mean, they're gonna carry that trauma and that burden
Right.
for the rest of their life as they enter relationships, as they decide to get married and have children. So it's very sad.
I had a case that came from an attorney in Saipan. The father was from Ireland and the mother was Chinese. And he kidnapped the child while she was at the store by handcuffing the grandma and the sister to the chair and took the child. The child was 8 years old at the time, a boy. Came to San Diego, where I used to live and I have contacts. So I had someone watch. We found where the school was, and this investigator was watching exactly what was going on. So I flew in, I brought the mother all the way from China overnight. I mean, it was 24 hours because she could disappear. The father and the child could disappear. The police came, they were standing by. This is what is also very interesting. The police has to stand by. They may not be able to do anything, but they have to keep the peace.
Yeah.
So they were there. The father brought the window down. He didn't want to deal with a woman because he was whatever.
Yeah.
And I called the district attorney. Um, the mother came out of nowhere. She was crying, and the child freaked out. In fact, they could not believe that the mother was standing right there from China.
Mm.
Amazing story. So the prosecutor said, either you let this boy go with me and the mother, or he's going to have to go to emergency homes for months, and neither one of you is going to see him.
Yeah.
Emergency homes, it changes their lives because they were strangers. So the father let him go and he went back to Ireland. I took him to a hotel and straight to the airport.
Mm.
In the car, He was yelling, let me go, let me go. I want to go back to dad. I want to go back to dad. I don't want to go back to China. They beat you up in school. I want to go to Disneyland. And he was crying. He says, I want to be in America. I don't want to go to China.
Yeah.
And that was just really sad because, you know, he's only 10 years old. And this kind of things happen. And the father had said so many bad things about the mom that he did not want to let mom touch him.
Yeah.
And I was driving, going to the airport. It's very, very sad.
Yeah.
That is one of the situations. I did have a successful case. Another one, the father again, actually, the mother was from Cyprus. The father was from New York. And the mother said, I'm going to go to the store. I'll be right back. Everything was worked out. The child was 1 year old or 6 months actually. And he immediately looked for private investigators trying to find out because she never came home. She went to the airport. Everything was set up. The passport, she had a passport. Her own passport covered the child because he was so young.
Yeah.
And even her own father and Cyprus country of Cyprus, the government was into allowing this to happen. So she disappeared. She went to Cyprus, and I was hired to find this boy. It took me 6 days. I was lucky. I followed the leads, and even though there was other private investigators for a year, they couldn't find him.
Yeah.
I did some undercover work, and luckily I found him, and I found out where he is with the mother and what part of Cyprus, which was the Greek part.
Mm.
I hired a female private investigator, and here's the problem. Hague Treaty, and we got caught. It went through Hague. It took almost a year to go through Hague. Then COVID hit, and the father got caught not being able to come back to New York. He had to stay in Cyprus with his child. And he even told me, he says, you know what, that's the first time I see my child being able to walk through the videos that you're sending me. Making long story short, they are in New York together now. He's 8 years old,
Wow.
happily living together. Really a great success story. But she has said so many bad things that at the beginning in New York, he used to hit him. He used to hit his own father. It's like, I don't want to be with you. I want to be with
Yeah.
mom. No, why are you taking me here?
Yeah. I mean,
Parental
that
child
case you
abductions are
said
very hard.
it took 6 days to find him, and then of course the Hague and COVID slowed things down. But the risk is when it takes many years and the children are older, just like you mentioned, this child screaming, I don't want to go back to China. I don't want to go.
Yeah,
And I've heard similar cases. I did another podcast with an American Korean father whose child was abducted to Korea by the mother. She signed a document saying, I'm going to take the child on vacation. They were already either separated or divorced in the US. And she signed saying, I'm coming back. And she never came back. He knows
right,
where the child is. The child,
right.
they know exactly where the child is in Korea. And they've gone through The Hague. But the challenge is enforcement. So they call them, I think, enforcement officers. So they'll send them and say, basically, go take the child. And the child will scream and throw a fit because the child is a child. They're comfortable in the home they
Yeah.
are. They don't understand what's happening. Nobody, how's a child going to deal with law
And
enforcement
parents
thing?
make mistakes. They
Mm,
sometimes drug their own children, or the private investigator drug the child to go through the borders. If
mm,
you know, if it's that kind of situation where you're not going through the airports, or the child doesn't want to go back and starts yelling and screaming, oh, don't let me forget. I have a recent case
mm,
in Greece. I was in Greece. I was in
yeah.
Rhodos since last week. If I can tell this story.
Yeah. I would love to hear how you kind of deal with that when the child is, you know, the child where the child is, but the child does not want to come back. And maybe law enforcement or enforcement officers are ready to kind
Uh,
of give up.
right. Here's the problem also because the law enforcement is so in third world countries, not America, third world countries, the law enforcement is paid off many times.
Yeah.
And luckily, we were able to work with some people that were We brought the child back. I mean, I worked a case in Singapore where the other private investigator wanted to drug the child. In fact, the father said, let's just put this 4-year-old girl and drug her. I'm like, no, no, because it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
She may never wake up. Sometimes they get so freaked out, they put the pillow over them. If they're making too much noise, mistakes can happen
Yeah.
going through the border.
Yeah.
But last week, as you know, I went to the Greek islands of Rhodos, and me and my partner, we were going to go to the beach, and I heard this couple from Saudi Arabia, and I know Arabic a little bit, and I know that they were from Saudi or Iraq. It was Arabic
Mm.
language. Um, a child of like maybe 6 years old, not even more than 7, very, very Norwegian looking, very white,
Mm.
very blonde hair, like almost from uh, one of these countries, um,
Scandinavia.
Scandinavia, thank you,
Yeah.
Scandinavian countries, with blue eyes, very light. And the younger daughter, the younger sister, I'm assuming that it was a sister, was sitting in a stroller.
Mm.
She was crying. She did not want to go. And they were talking to her in Arabic. Come
Mm.
on, blah, blah, blah. They were yelling at her. And she was crying, no, I don't want to go. And I kept thinking, there's no way this child could be their child.
Mm.
Neither one of them. They were so white. So I told my partner, I said, follow them. Just follow them. See what they're saying. In
Yeah.
what language are they speaking? Are they friendly to this child? So finally, she took the other child off the stroller and put the bigger one, the 6-year-old, in the stroller. The father was down the hill. There was a hill like this.
Mm.
And he was following them. And I all of a sudden saw the mother let go of the stroller down the hill. And last minute just yelled at the father or whoever that was, uh, catch her, catch her. And they caught her, but she hit the wall. I could not believe. So we went looking for police. We could not find.
Mm.
It was so difficult. We asked around, oh, it's over here, over here. So when you are in a third world country or even Greece, which is somewhat of a third world country, it's hard to work with the law enforcement. I
Yeah.
can't approach the father or the parents and say, is this your child? Why is she so light? Are
Yeah.
you guys, do you all speak Arabic? Because she didn't seem like she understood Arabic.
Yeah.
You can't assume that they are not their children. So that's a dilemma.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like
I,
everywhere you go, you have your private investigator hat on and eyes wide open.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I wish I could just go say, hey, and I've done stuff like this. When I lived in Barcelona, for example, um, I saw this, there are women. This is how I got involved with missing children and trafficking. I kept seeing these women in Barcelona because I used to live there. That they would wear hijab
Mm.
and very colorful clothes, and they would speak Spanish but with an accent, which is "Ayúdame por favor, ayúdame."
Mm.
And I saw this, and I was very skeptical about who they were. So I befriended another woman who seemed like from Romania. She
Mm.
told me that the mafia from Romania and Bulgaria get these women, they put them in these clothes, and they kidnap little children of a year old, whatever, like prop. They drug them out to use them as prop in the streets
Mm.
to collect money for the mafia.
Mm.
And at night, they take them all back in the bus and they put them in very short skirts, same women, short skirts,
Mm.
and walk the streets for sex trafficking. So one day I was sitting at Starbucks. I saw the same type of woman sitting on the ground with a child, and it started snowing. That's how cold it was. And the child was literally naked on his back, a year old, seemed like.
Mm.
And the mouth was open, seemed like drug. I mean, there's no way he could be sleeping in this cold weather. So I
Yeah.
went up. I said, This is not your child.
Yeah.
Whose child is this? This is not yours. And I just made a big scene. And but again, police is nowhere in sight. So I went and reported it to the Starbucks so they can call
Mm.
someone to come.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
are you going to do?
Yeah.
People need to be aware.
So I think
We-
what I
Yeah.
hear a lot from parents and families when their children go missing for any reason, I think that their instinct is like to call the police, which is probably a good idea. But I wonder if you can talk a bit about what is the value of working with a private investigator early on, and also a bit about how do you choose a private investigator? Again, given that there are plenty of people that take advantage of others, obviously you also want a private investigator that's going to have, that's going to be able to reunite, find your child and reunite with your child, have a high success rate. So if you can just talk a bit about, the value of a private investigator being involved in cases of missing children,
Well,
especially.
the biggest thing is law enforcement doesn't help right away.
Mm,
There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of bureaucracy, and you have the detective that is working is not working. Okay, the police works on your case first, then they might give it to a detective to start working on it. It takes a long time because there's a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy.
mm,
The parents can't wait because within 72 hours, any child in the street will be approached by a trafficker.
mm,
72 hours and or disappear on their own, if not killed or whatever. It's an emergency. You are on a clock and you need to rush this. A lot of private investigators get hired because A, we get paid. We don't work pro bono. So we don't have that bureaucracy, you know. But I personally have worked cases pro bono. I had a nonprofit organization called Teens Against Human Trafficking, which I actually worked some cases and later found out that the parents had a lot of money, but I worked for free. Um, also, um, you have to watch out for the private investigators that charge too much. So
mm,
if it is in local area, like let's say in your city or your state, now if it's gone over the state line, it's more expensive. If
yeah,
it's out of the country, it's definitely more expensive. But it should not be unreasonable. So
mm,
you have to watch out for what they do, and also um, sometimes they pay half up front, half at the end, which is also not feasible because, for example, if you hire me, I have to hire other people. I'm not going to go to Singapore,
mm,
which I had a case there, which my book is about Singapore by myself. I'm going to take a team of two or three, and I have to pay them each.
yeah,
So international child abduction can get very expensive. So instead of actually go to that country now, I hire licensed private investigators that belong to certain organizations such as World Association of Detectives or
mm,
Council of International Investigators. These are two very prominent investigations uh, worldwide, global. I can give you those names so you can
mm,
pass those on to
yeah,
people. If you are a member of those organizations, you know you're working with a licensed investigator. I worked a case in Ukraine just 3 years ago, actually 4 years, 2021, right before he went to the whole, situation with war in Mariupol, which doesn't even exist right now.
mm,
So, and it was during COVID again, and vaccine, blah, blah, blah. And I was willing to go, but instead I hired a licensed investigator that I found from World Association of Detectives
mm,
in Kiev. And they went to Mariupol and did a surveillance.
yeah,
They found the mother and the child. This is parental
yeah,
child abduction. Um, the reason I'm just kind of reminiscing right now because a lot of those cities don't even exist anymore, like
mm,
Kharkov and Mariupol and Odessa. I think is still there, but it was a very sad situation with this case. Um, but you have to do background check on private investigators. You have to see their background. You have to see how many children they have recovered. What is their criminal record?
Mm.
Because a lot of private investigators get the money and disappear.
Yeah.
So I can tell you more
Yeah. No, that's
about this
great.
kind of
So I will
situation.
definitely link the names of those organizations, and people should make sure that the
Right.
private
One
investigators.
of them is WAD,
Mm.
WAD, and the other one is CII,
Mhm.
Council of International Investigators and World Association of Detectives. I
Mm.
will I will give you those leads.
Yeah.
I'm not a
Absolutely.
member anymore of
Mm.
either of them because for many you have to pay a lot. For
Mm.
many years, I was a member, and I've been licensed for 30 years. So people know me, they hire me based on word of mouth now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so what is there any other like value of hiring a private investigator? I mean, other than just kind of time moving quickly, where law enforcement tends not to move so
well,
quickly.
a lot of people, like I was never a law enforcement agent. I went straight from school, got my master's. And I can also tell you how to get your license. And I gathered my hours and I started working, but I was not in a hurry. See, I was not in a hurry to get my license because I was collecting information and working.
Mm.
A lot of people work for 3 years and immediately they ask for the license. I worked 9 years before
Mm.
I even began to apply for my license because I wanted to know how it is to be a civil investigator, how to be an insurance investigator, how to be to do undercover, to do surveillance, to do criminal investigation. Once you take that test, which is 4 hours, I passed the first time. A lot of people, just like a bar exam, don't pass for years and years because they ask all questions. But private investigators, they specialize on one thing, like maybe criminal investigation or insurance. But what about the rest of it? But
Yeah.
anyways, um, so I know a lot about a lot of type of investigation. Um, I got distracted. I'm sorry.
No worries. So it's really about also like looking for a private investigator that has a decent work experience and background before they even potentially became a private investigator, or right? Because
A
I think
lot of
it's
private investigators, yes, are law enforcement, ex-law enforcement,
mm,
ex-FBI, ex-CIA, ex-intelligence, blah, blah, blah. Good and bad on this
mm,
because they approach a case like us against them. We are we are different. Hold 1 second.
mm,
1 second. I lost you for a second. Okay. So I don't have that attitude, for example, because I was always a private investigator. I
mm,
had internships that I went step by step, gathering my hours. So it's not us against them. It's people and people.
yeah,
You hire me. Now I'm going to look at someone uh, yard to see if a child is there or someone is there. But that doesn't mean that person is a criminal.
yeah,
But a private investigator who has a lot of law enforcement in the background, they look at a case and they think, well, that's a predator or is a criminal, and I'm against them.
yeah,
And and that's not true. Yeah. You know what I mean?
yeah. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Because well, I'm not talking about child abduction. I'm talking about all cases.
Mm,
Cases are someone hires you, and that person that you are watching is not necessarily a criminal. It might be a mother who kidnapped a child to keep that child safe from the father. So you have to actually investigate and do a little background check on your own client,
yeah,
making sure you're not taking a child from a safe place to a predator.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
that's
not as black
really,
and white
really,
as we'd like to think it is. Then you really have to do your homework to understand the
you have
situation.
to do your homework
Yeah,
on the parent that kidnapped the child.
yeah,
And the parent is left behind.
Yeah.
Am I bringing the child back and handing it over to alcoholic or drug addict parents?
Yeah.
So no,
Mm.
not going to.
Yeah.
Our number one, as you know, Danielle, is the child.
Yeah.
Safety of the child. And it's really, I've been there, done that. I've seen so many things in the last 30 years of children being abused, being um, used up in satanic calls. I've done cases of satanic calls where parents are selling their own children to a satanic cult. Why? Freedom of speech, right? And the satanic cults do exist in United States. I don't know anywhere else. And I had a case. She was 10 years old, sold by her own parents to a satanic cult. They raped her over and over and over and over. And then she developed like 36 personalities. She was put in foster care, and her own psychologist adopted her.
Wow.
I came in to this case. I sat with her. She looked normal, but she had many, many, many personalities.
Mm.
And I don't know if you want to know the rest of this case. It's not a child abduction case, but um, the same people who satanic cults would kidnap her over and over every Halloween,
Yeah.
wherever she was, and they would take her. And one Halloween, me and my team, we sat and had dinner with them to make sure that they are secure, and we saw activities in the backyard, but we were there.
Wow.
Crazy, crazy stuff.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of really diverse cases that you worked on. So, Monique, I'm going to definitely put the link to your website and your books in the description of the podcast in case any parents are interested in reading your books or getting in contact. Is there anything else that you want to share before we close
Well,
this?
I think I shared some of my cases to where, yeah, I mean, I can talk to you for hours. I've been in this business a long time. Um, I don't take cases in Mexico,
Mm.
just so you know. Um, I did have a case of this is kind of scary. I don't want to scare anyone, but the mother had a twins, and the other child of the family, well, I was hired, but then we had to stop because the traffickers stole her from the hospital, opened her stomach, and took the children. If you can believe it, took her twins out of her stomach and left her for dead.
Wow.
Cases like this happen. They're very sad. I've seen it all. Um, all I can say is keep your children safe by knowing where they are and what they're doing. Don't let them hang out with the wrong crowd. Make sure that you are chaperoning them. I know if I had children, I would be like stuck to them. I would, but that's because I've seen it all. Just like I've seen, infidelity. I can tell you when someone is infidel,
Mm.
cheating on their spouse.
Mm.
I know I'm very intuitive.
Mm.
Anyways, the name of my book is Children of the Underworld, uh, 3 parts, and you can find it on Amazon. Or the second book is going to be out probably sometime this week.